Posted by you / deleted. I don't know if writing this will help, but I've carried the weight of it for too long. I'm an attorney now, have been for a while, but this story isn't about my legal career. It's about what happened before all of that. It's about family, betrayal, and a man who finally, at the very end, made things right. My mom died when I was 10. My brother was 8. He was born with cognitive delays, not severe, but enough to make things harder. My dad was a career-focused man, good provider, sharp dresser, always had a plan. But when she died, we all broke. For a few years, it was just the three of us. We managed. Then came her. Dad met Karen when I was around 12. By 14, they were married. She moved in fast, both into our home and into control. It took all of 2 weeks for the smiling woman he married to vanish. The new Karen yelled when things weren't perfect. Slammed cabinets. Snapped at my brother when he didn't understand her instructions. I tried to shield him, but I was just a kid too. One night, after she screamed at him for spilling orange juice, I finally told Dad we needed to talk. Just me and him. I waited until Karen was out. I explained how she was treating us, especially my brother. He looked worried. I thought maybe he'd believe me. But the next day, he called us both into the living room. And she was already sitting there. I knew we were screwed. She put on that fake calm voice. Said we were exaggerating, that she never yelled, that she never slammed doors. She turned everything around. They don't help enough around the house, she said. They're old enough to start acting like young men. I'd been doing dishes every night, vacuuming, helping with my brother's homework. None of it mattered. Dad told us we needed to be more supportive. She's pregnant, he added, as if that changed everything. I looked at him, and for the first time in my life, I realized he wouldn't protect us. Not from her. The only person Dad listened to was his own father, our grandfather. A stoic, quiet man who'd served in Korea and ran his own carpentry business until retirement. He tried not to interfere in Dad's life. But one night, I overheard shouting from the garage. It was Grandpa. He was yelling. I'd never heard him yell before. She hit him, Bill. You can't excuse that. I don't care if she's hormonal or overwhelmed, she laid a hand on your boy. I didn't hear Dad's full reply, just his weak excuses. Something about stress and trying to keep the family together. I remember Grandpa's voice cutting through it all, you're failing them. One day, you'll regret this. After the baby was born, a boy they named Jake, everything got worse. Karen poured all of her energy and attention into that child like he was royalty. He had the best of everything, high-end diapers imported from Europe, custom-painted nursery walls with some overpriced jungle mural, designer baby clothes he'd outgrow in 2 weeks, and a white noise machine that cost more than the used Honda I'd eventually scrape together money for in college. They even had a baby monitor that synced to Karen's phone in real time. Nothing but the best for my little angel, she'd coo, practically glowing with maternal pride. Meanwhile, my brother and I quietly became the help. There's no other way to describe it. We cooked, cleaned, did the laundry, fetched bottles and burp cloths, and ran errands for her. If the dog needed walking, she'd yell our names. If Jake so much as whimpered, we were expected to fly into the nursery like paramedics. Karen barely lifted a finger for anything that didn't directly involve Jake, and even then, we were still expected to clean up after that, too. But it wasn't just the workload. It was the way she spoke to us. Like we were subhuman. Stupid. Lazy. Worthless. Words she spat with venom, always when Dad wasn't around. She'd catch us off guard, in those quiet in-between moments, just before dinner, just after school, just as we were heading out the door. She never shouted when anyone else was listening. Her tone was calm, cutting, like a scalpel. Sometimes, it was worse than yelling. Once, I forgot to load the dishwasher after putting Jake to bed. She found me in my room, pulled the door open without knocking, and hissed, "You think you're too good to follow rules? You want to live in this house, you pull your weight." I tried to say something, anything, but the words stuck. She stared at me like I was dirt under her shoe. "I should have sent you off to boarding school when I had the chance," she muttered, then slammed the door behind her. Dad, of course, didn't see any of this. Or pretended not to. And in public? Karen was a picture-perfect stepmom. Smiles at church, warm hugs at family gatherings, chirpy Christmas letters she made us sign. Family BBQs were a performance, matching outfits, perfectly packed picnic baskets, Jake perched on her hip like a trophy. She had a way of making people believe we were some kind of suburban fairy tale. "Oh, the boys are thriving," she'd say with a practiced smile. "They've really stepped up since the baby came." But behind closed doors, it was back to the grind. The fake niceties vanished. She barked orders like a drill sergeant. Once, I dared to push back, just asked if I could go to a friend's birthday party on a Saturday. She scoffed. "Must be nice to have time for parties. Meanwhile, the house is a disaster and your brother needs help with his science project." Selfish little brat. Extended family saw pieces of it. They weren't blind. They noticed how we seemed tense, quiet, like we were walking on glass. Some of Karen's own relatives, her sister Missy, and her cousin Lynn, occasionally came by to visit after Jake was born. They'd make comments, low and uncomfortable. "She's a bit intense, huh?" Missy said once, helping herself to a soda in the kitchen. I glanced at her. "You have no idea." She offered a half smile, then quickly changed the subject. "You boys doing okay in school?" And that was the pattern. They'd make vague acknowledgments that things weren't right, then dodge any responsibility. Nobody wanted to be the one to speak up. At Thanksgiving one year, Aunt Lynn pulled me aside after dinner. We were standing by the garage while she smoked, keeping one eye on the kids playing in the yard. "She's always been a little high-strung," she said, exhaling a stream of smoke. "Don't take it personally. Some women just have a hard time with stepkids." I wanted to scream. "She hates us," I said. "She calls my brother names. She makes him clean up after Jake like a servant." Lynn didn't even blink. "Well, just keep your head down, sweetheart. You're almost out of the house, right? College soon? Just ignore her. It's not worth the drama. Ignore her." That's what everyone said. My dad's side of the family wasn't much better. My Uncle Dan noticed once that my brother flinched when Karen walked by. "Everything all right at home?" he asked me while tossing a football around with us at a cookout. I gave him a long look. "No. It's not." He sighed. "Well, sometimes dads remarry women who aren't a good fit. But she's Jake's mom now. That complicates things. Your dad's doing what he thinks is best. Maybe just hang in there, huh? Hang in there. Ignore her. Keep your head down." Everyone had advice, but no one had courage. Nobody confronted Karen. Nobody said what needed to be said. Maybe they were afraid of her. Maybe they didn't want to get involved. But the silence, God, the silence was deafening. We were alone. Just me, my brother, and the growing knowledge that no one was coming to save us. At 16, I got a job. Weekends, then evenings. I worked as much as school would allow. Saved every dime. At 18, I made National Honor Society. When I started packing for college, my brother, now 16, helped me tape up the boxes. He asked me if things would get better. I told him the truth. I'd be gone, but I wasn't abandoning him. If he needed me, I'd be there. And Grandpa was still close by if things ever got really bad. I hugged him tight that night. By then, even Dad had started to see the cracks. But he was afraid. If I divorce her, he told me once, she'll take half of everything. So he kept the peace. But that peace came at the cost of my brother's sanity. My brother graduated high school 2 years after me. He wasn't college-bound, not for lack of intelligence, but because school had always been harder for him. Reading comprehension, staying focused, organizing information, he managed, but with a lot of help. College just wasn't the right path, and he knew it. Still, he wanted to work, to be independent, to contribute something meaningful. Grandpa, our constant protector, pulled some strings with an old army buddy who ran a small landscaping company on the outskirts of town. "They'll treat him right," Grandpa told Dad over the phone. "Real work, outdoors, good people. And health insurance." It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. And my brother liked it. There was pride in mowing lawns, planting shrubs, trimming hedges. He said it helped quiet the noise in his head. "It's like meditating, but with a weed whacker," he once joked. But since he still lived at home, Karen saw him not as a working adult, but as a permanent babysitter. Jake was now in 2nd grade, 8 years old, loud, spoiled, and oblivious to the wreckage around him. Karen pawned off every school drop-off, pickup, and homework session on my brother. "You live here rent-free," she'd snap. "Least you can do is pull your weight." Never mind that he paid for his own groceries, chipped in on utilities, and took Jake to every dentist and doctor appointment. None of that mattered. She treated him like a delinquent squatter. If he came home from work and tried to relax, put his feet up, maybe play a video game, she'd immediately swoop in. "Must be nice to lounge around while the rest of us work," she'd say, loud enough for Jake to hear. "Don't you have laundry to fold? Maybe scrub the bathroom? I shouldn't have to remind you like a child." It didn't stop there. Her words hit low. Always just a little crueler than they needed to be. "Don't make that face. You look like your mother when she was stressed. And look how that turned out." Sometimes I'd call him at night. He'd keep his voice low, usually outside on the back porch, so Karen wouldn't hear. "I can handle the chores," he'd say, "but the way she talks. It gets in your head, you know. Starts to feel like she's right." "She's not," I'd say. "You know she's not." He didn't always sound convinced. Worse, when we brought it up to extended family, people who knew Karen, who saw glimpses of how she operated, no one stepped in. Not once. At Uncle Ray's Labor Day cookout that year, Karen unleashed a particularly sharp tirade in front of everyone. My brother had brought Jake a cheeseburger from the grill, only to discover it had ketchup when Jake had wanted mustard. Karen snatched the plate from my brother's hands like he'd offered Jake poison. "What's wrong with you?" she barked. "Do you even listen when someone tells you something? Must be nice to float through life, screwing everything up and getting applauded for it." The backyard went silent. The radio was still playing classic rock, but the conversations had stopped. Uncle Ray looked over from the grill, spat sunflower seeds into a cup, and finally muttered, "Well, she's got a temper, don't she?" I stepped up beside him. "Are you seriously just going to let that slide?" Ray shrugged, eyes still fixed on the burgers. "Ain't my business, kid. Not my house. You know how some women are, fiery. Best thing your brother can do is man up and not take it so personal." "Man up," I echoed, bitterly. "She humiliates him in front of everyone, and you think he's the problem?" Ray didn't answer. He just flipped another burger and said, "World ain't fair, son. Never was." And that's what we kept hearing. From aunts, cousins, neighbors. The same useless lines, repeated like a prayer against involvement. "Just keep your head down. She's under a lot of stress. You've got to pick your battles. That's just how some women are. Your dad must see something in her. She can't be all bad. Maybe she's just trying to push him to be more responsible." No one confronted her. No one said, "That's enough." Even those who seemed sympathetic never dared to rock the boat. They'd change the subject. Offer awkward half smiles. Sometimes they'd pull us aside after a gathering, as if waiting until Karen wasn't looking somehow erased their complicity. "You know I love you boys," Aunt Laura whispered to me once at Thanksgiving. "But I'm not going to get in the middle of things. Your dad made his choice. That's what it always came down to. His choice. His house. His wife. And my brother? He just kept showing up to work, caring for Jake, and swallowing the abuse one sigh at a time. Every time I saw him, he seemed just a little smaller, shoulders more slumped, voice a little flatter. He wasn't broken, but the cracks were growing. And still, the world around him, our so-called family, just kept pretending the foundation wasn't crumbling. The only person who still stood up for him was Grandpa. But by then, he was slowing down. Diagnosed with cancer. Terminal. Dad said I couldn't stay at the house during the summer between college and law school because things were tense. Karen didn't want me around. Said it would disrupt the family rhythm. Dad spun it like I was doing him a favor by staying with Grandpa and Grandma. I saw through it, but agreed. I visited Grandpa every day in the hospital. For 6 weeks, I watched him waste away. Karen never visited once. Not once. 3 weeks before I left for law school, he died. At the funeral, I didn't see a single tear from Karen. My brother stood next to me, devastated. I whispered to him afterward, "You've got to find a way out." He just shook his head. "I can't. This is all I've got." He wasn't wrong. He couldn't qualify for disability. His job provided health insurance. Rent anywhere else was too expensive. We made a pact: once I became a lawyer, he'd move in with me. I took extra courses, powered through law school in 2 years. I didn't want to go home for breaks. But that first Christmas, I did. My brother pulled me aside. "It's getting worse," he said. "She told me, when your father's gone, you'll have nothing. My attorney will see to that." I confronted Dad. He looked ashamed. "I don't know what to do," he said. "You stand up," I told him. "You do what's fair. You plan your estate like a man." He said he'd think about it. The final straw came that summer. My mom's parents, my maternal grandparents, called me. My brother was staying with them. Karen had beat his arm black and blue for buying the wrong brand of coffee creamer. I drove home immediately. We went back to the house together to get his things. Karen was waiting. Smiling like a snake. "You're such a bad influence," she said to me. "This was supposed to be your home too, but you abandoned your family." I ignored her. Packed boxes. Dad stood there, wringing his hands. Then Karen tried to grab my arm. I stepped back. "Don't touch me." She lunged. Tried to choke me. Dad pulled her off. "You're both ungrateful little shits," she screamed. "Get out. And you'll never get a dime from us, not a cent when we die." We left. As we drove away, Dad came outside. "If you two would just apologize." I stopped the car. Got out. "She beat your son. She attacked me. And you want us to apologize? Is this the family you want to leave your legacy to?" He said nothing. Just stared at the ground. We moved on. I became a defense attorney. My brother ran his own landscaping business. We stayed in touch with Dad. Saw him once or twice a year. Karen never came. Jake, the youngest, graduated college. They bought him a house. We didn't care. We were just relieved my brother was out of that hellhole. One dinner, just the three of us, no Karen. Dad looked older. Tired. "I've been diagnosed with something bad," he said. "But I want you both to know, you're in the estate." I thought a lot about what my father would do. I want to live up to that. I didn't ask questions. Just nodded. A year later, he was gone. At the estate meeting, the lawyer handed out folders. Karen smirked. I'm sure we can skip this. I already know I'm getting everything. The lawyer smiled faintly. Yes, under the trust, you do receive everything in the trust: house, bank accounts, vacation home. About $1.5 million in total. She beamed. Told you. But, he continued, per the amendment you both signed, either party could independently change their individual accounts. This was at your request, Mrs. Miller, so that your husband could refinance the house without dragging you to closings. Her face twitched. The retirement accounts, life insurance, and 2 investment accounts, valued at $2.9 million, were all made payable on death to these 2 gentlemen. He gestured to us. She turned red. You can't do that. He can't do that. He could. He did. And he disclosed it. You didn't read the paperwork. You were in a hurry to get to a spa appointment, as I recall. She stood up, yelling. If you contest this, the lawyer said calmly, you'll likely lose. And the trust will have to pay litigation fees. I'd advise against it. We left. She didn't say another word. Weeks later, we stood by our father's grave, next to our grandfather and grandmother. I forgive you, I whispered. Not because you deserve it. But because you tried. You finally tried. We pay for the upkeep of the gravesite. Karen refuses to. That's fine. She got what she wanted. So did we. But more importantly, we got out. And stayed out.
This story was fictional, but it highlights some of the chaos that can happen in actual estates. If you want to plan your estate the right way, get your free ebook at www.estateplanningebook.com.